All right, thank you everybody for joining the Hyperin webinar. During the challenging times, we wanted to host with our existing clients and also all the stakeholders that we have the webinar about how to reach your target audience during crises. And my colleague Jarmo, if we can already have the screen on a big one, and we can move on to the next slide here. All right, perfect. So a little bit about today's agenda. The webinar is about to last about roughly 45 minutes, and during that time we'll be covering the following topics. So first, of course, we are going to introduce you the hosts for today, and very briefly about Hyperin and about the webinar, the objectives to be covered for today, and of course the most important for today is sharing the best practices with you about crisis management, what we can share with you that we have been learning together with our clients and other peers in the industry. And at the end, we will be wrapping up with questions and answers we are taking in during the webinar in the chat, the questions that you can be writing there. And at the end, we try to cover and answer the questions. The ones that we have to come back a little bit later on, we will be adding those in the recording of this. So everything that you have in your mind, we are targeting to answer to everything. All right, let's move on. So the man on the line now, my name is Hannu Käki. I'm a Vice President of Business Development here at Hyperin, working together with the market clients, and my colleague, Mr. Jarmo Lehtonen, he will be sharing more concrete use cases with a very wide experience he has already in the industry and working together with the most demanding clients who are operating the most advanced shopping malls in the industry. And if we share a little bit about Hyperin in a nutshell. For the next slide, Hyperin has been in the market already for 12 years, serving the retail real estate industry. By today, we are serving more than 200 shopping centers in Europe and Asia. So with that experience, we have quite a wide knowledge and understanding how in different market conditions our clients are operating and what are the best practices that we have learned, and especially in this situation, how we can help you and to survive over the current situation. So still wrapping up, and the objectives, we want to share with you what during the past weeks and already has been done and what can be done, and for the future, for the next weeks, when the market is still changing a little bit, the recommendations and instructions from the healthcare government authorities are changing, and there can be quite drastic decisions also considering our industry. So how to react effectively and still keep all the strings at your hands and try to stay on the driver's seat. But at this point, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Jarmo, and he's going to continue from here. Thank you, and I hope you will have a good takeover from this.
Okay, thank you very much, Hannu. So my name is Jarmo Lehtonen from Hyperin, working here as a program manager. And I have been working with different customers, different projects, and currently working more with the product development side of our service and continuing to develop it together with our research and development team and other persons to be more usable and have even more features for the shopping center industry in the future. But to continue on the theme of crisis management and the situation we see in shopping centers today, for the past couple of weeks, we have been experiencing and seeing a very exceptional situation in the markets in Asia and Europe already from the turn of the year, and now it's becoming very concrete here in our local markets in Finland as well. We are seeing many stores closing and many of the services becoming unavailable in shopping centers. For example, children's playground and other gathering places, due to the sign of the times, are being closed and not available. Stores and shopping centers are experiencing very exceptional opening hours, very drastic changes, and even in the policy, we are seeing in the markets that some shopping centers are transforming from mandatory opening hours to suggested opening hours. And therefore, it's giving exceptionally a lot of room for the stores themselves to maneuver in this situation, depending on their situation. And many stores want to stay open, but maybe for more limited hours, and some are then closed altogether. March is a very typical campaign period for shopping centers in the Finnish markets. We are seeing cancellations of shopping center campaigns and also strong alterations on the planned content of these campaigns. So if there are typically a lot of events, a lot of artists, a lot of public gatherings, and in most of the cases these have now been cancelled, so there's no performances or any extra events. If we are seeing campaigns, they are done with a very minimal scope, and the focus is on offers and advertisements in a very limited fashion. So especially if we think that for some shopping centers these are the biggest campaigns that they do annually in March, then of course the impact is very big on the annual footfall and sales as well. Also local meetings, if we think about shopping center management, we are seeing that local meetings are being cancelled and done in different ways. So the normal processes also, when we think about communications, are being disrupted. And more people are working all the time remotely, especially in offices and shopping center management. And also a lot of extra cleaning, guidance, and extra disinfectants that are impacting the hygiene level in shopping centers. And a lot of precautions have been taken into account related to this. Okay, so where do we see ourselves as an online service provider? Of course, we are not daily on the grounds in shopping centers, but we work together with shopping centers and have been working together for 10 years. And there are certain patterns, certain communication aspects that we have noticed over the years. And those are the kind of things that we want to share from our perspective as a software service provider and also as a partner for shopping centers. So some general principles to begin with when we think about crisis communication, when we think about shopping centers that that do it well and see good outcomes, also in the face of the public, and then also in the face of the customers and tenants. We have identified certain principles. So first of all, timely communication. You need to communicate a lot, and you need to make information available through all the channels at your disposal. And regarding these channels, you need to establish proper channels and processes for the communication so that you know what information you are sharing in which channel, and what is your internal prioritization and processing order for that information. And one of the first principles in communication is checking that your contact information is up to date. And in Hyperin service, we have all the time had the features for contact information management. And then there are certain best principles how to maintain that and how to check that we will also address in this webinar. Use communication channels consistently and frequently, and especially in the initial stages of the situation when you are in the middle of a crisis, where there's a chance of people getting feelings of panic. There is typically a very strong need for information. So in the initial stages, it's good to over-communicate even slightly. If you are in doubt, do you need to communicate something, then it's better to communicate more than less. This will help you enforce new practices, and it will also help spread of good information, good valid information instead of rumors. Shopping center organizations can be very big with thousands of people working them. If you think about all the personnel and stakeholders, if the shopping center management does not provide information, then the rumors will start to circulate. And one important aspect of this is keeping tenants up to date. So basically, when you're getting information from the government sources and making internal decisions, then tenants are the first in line who should be updated on the information, and then of course consumers later on. But tenants on the ground level are also an important information source for consumers who are visiting the center. They are of course asking the tenants that what is the situation here, and the tenants need to know. Make finding the latest information obvious. So in practice, this means that you have the clear channels for communication, and you also use them consistently, so you are not all the time changing the channels you are using for the communication. So it makes it easier for consumers, tenants, or the stakeholders to find the information they want, because they can trust that there is a place where we have the information. I will go there and I will find it. And how does Hyperin help? We offer an online service that can be easily reached with high availability. So wherever you have internet connection, modern browsers, mobile tablets available, you can connect to our services and share information and get information and make updates. We offer multi-channel communication tools for different stakeholders in the shopping center business. If we think about shopping center office, they can all collaborate and use Hyperin services as a central platform for the communications and checking also who has communicated what, also getting feedback from consumers and publishing messages to consumers. And then there's tools for tenant communication, reaching personals through the personal intranet, and so on. And we have different types of tools that at your disposal for shopping center management. We support email sending. We have internal news that you can use inside the intranet, and then also SMS or even push messaging for mobile applications when available. Also, the centralized content management that we offer through Hyperin is very helpful, even in normal operations, but especially in times of crisis, when you want to make updates fast and reliably and reach all your relevant channels through the minimum number of updates. So when your Hyperin service is connected to the website, digital touchscreens, and the mobile application, if you have those, then the key content, key images, key news and events articles can be all managed through that. And this also contains opening hours information and the store level opening hour content and information as well. And what we do is not only software. We noticed that it's more about the people, and it's very important part of what we do is the interaction with our customers, interaction with the markets, going deep into the markets and understanding their needs. So we really take pride in our customer service team, who is all the time helping with the implementation. It is not just about asking or answering problems and questions about user problems. It's also proactively thinking about solutions, how to find solutions for communications in times like these. We have many cases where we are looking with our customers how to communicate critical aspects to the customers in an efficient way and how to make things even more clearly visible. So the first aspect, keeping tenants up to date, internal communication in the shopping center. So we have a large variety of internal communication tools, and the main categories are internal news, which you publish inside the online service intranet, and then it's available for the tenants to read, and you can highlight those for a selected time period. Then we support role-based communication, so we have for each store we have different roles in the shopping center. Managed service, which you can use to update the key information, which the tenants are then maintaining themselves. So they add the information about their store manager, security contact, emergency contact, marketing contact, whatnot. And then we can build email distributions or send SMSs around these contacts for very efficient delivery. So if you know your audience, if you have an emergency message that you need to deliver, then you can use the SMS tool to reach out to the emergency contacts that are maintained in your Hyperin service in your shopping center. Then also for a broader audience, we are offering the mobile intranet with the shopping center mobile application. This even extends the reach to having the personal intranet available in the mobile application and reaching also the personal users, and even a larger audience for internal communication in the Hyperin service. And then in addition to these more dynamic communication tools, we have document and article storage available in the Hyperin service that you can use to store all the important guidelines and policies in one centralized place. So obviously there are lots of options that you can use in your communication in shopping center, daily management, and it's important then that you pick the proper tools for different scenarios. So if we'll now skip a little bit to the side. And actually have a look at the service. Hopefully you can see the service now. Give a shout in chat if you don't see it. So if we think about practical implications when you are using the Hyperin service, what you can do. When we think about crisis communication, like I mentioned, the first thing is to check that contact information is up to date. So what do we mean by contact information in the Hyperin service point of view? We typically talk about the roles that the stores can maintain. So if we think about information for internal use for a store, then we are talking about having the contacts for different roles like store manager, security contact, chain contact added in the store information of the shopping center. So typically in normal production usage, you would have this information populated. And how would you want to check that in normal operations? Maybe that is a good starting point. You want to check in your existing service, do you have all your information up to date? Easy starting point is to take a tenant export. So you would want to go to tenants and export tenant data in your Hyperin service. And this is a tool that you can use to take a lot of data, or basically a data dump of your store or tenant data from the Hyperin service. So depending on what you want to look at, you can then select the information you need. But in these circumstances, we wouldn't be so much interested in many of the internal information or more business-related information. We would want to check for the emergency communication that are the contact information in place. So we could separately select those fields and just remove all the other internal stuff. Then what is relevant for the situation as well, we might want to check the registration status, that have they signed up for the service. And then, which is also interesting, is opening hours. So that is something you might want to check from the service as a starting point. Then you can take an export of the data and see how is it looking for different stores in the service. Are the opening hours correct? Are the stores closed, which should be closed? Or are the exceptional opening hours configured properly? And if they haven't registered, then you want to catch up on their registration status if you are using the full version of the Manage, where registration into the service is required. And otherwise, for the contacts, you would want to especially focus on the stores that have the missing contact information, or if you know the personnel very well, you might want to check, do some contact seem out to date, and then contact the stores to get the information up to date so you can proceed with other communication approaches. Then other tools, we have the internal news or tenant news tool. So what you can see here. Okay, wait. Thank you. Okay, so in the internal news tool, this is the primary tool for internal communications that you can use in the Hyperin service. And the content you create here is available inside the Hyperin service. So it's basically intranet internal publications. But when you are creating these publications, then you can also send email notifications to the target audiences, which are the users of the service. So when you are sending important announcements, then this is one of the first tools you might be using. And also, if you think about monthly reporting or weekly reporting of the status of your shopping center, then this is the tool you could use as the primary channel. And when we are looking at times of crisis, then typically the usage is almost daily. Almost every day you are sending internal communications, and that's a very good approach to have like very up-to-date status report available through the service. So let's say we would want to get some more contact information and we want to enforce them to maintain their contacts. Then we might send them an internal news item kindly telling them what to do, highlighting that it's important to maintain the contact information, and then asking them to update it through their store information in the Hyperin service. And when you select a priority that is important or very important, email notification is automatically sent to the users of the service that a tenant news item has been published with a link to reading the news item from the service. So it's very straightforward. And these are then also visible in the tenant views front page for the tenants. So when they come to the service, they immediately see the latest news items in the front page. So for example, just to highlight it from the tenant user's point of view, all the internal news items would be then visible here, and they can read very up-to-date situation and also catch up on news items they might have not read earlier. And also something we offer here that is very important, you want to monitor how well the message is reaching your audience. So for internal news items, you actually can monitor at the store level what stores have read the information and which haven't. So then you get a very good coverage that are you reaching the people in your shopping center stores through this tool. And what we are seeing in real life in production, that the reading percentage of internal news items is very high, especially in times of crisis. So people are craving for information. And of course, when in many shopping centers, it might not be possible to have physical gatherings, then it's even more important to have good online tools and resources for sharing the information. And then also if you are using, for example, online tools like this one to have an online meeting with your tenants, then you can in any case announce that through the Hyperin service and communicate the meeting details there. And then in any case, it's always for your stores a place where they can, from one location, find the information they need. And also one point about the internal news is that if you are using the mobile application with the personal intranet, then there is also an opportunity to publish these internal news items to the mobile intranet, and you can even select if you want to publish them there as well to reach even a wider audience with these publications. And then if we think about other options, we have, like I showed earlier, that we have these roles for communication. So in order to take use of them, what you might want to do also in the initial stages of the crisis or even before that is configure your mailing lists to be at hand for the communication you want to perform, especially from the email channel. So in addition to publishing information in the Hyperin service, you can also send emails through the service, and it will automatically give you access to the contact email addresses, and you can create mailing distributions using the service that are dynamic based on the roles that the stores have. So just to give you an example. So we might want to create another example of a crisis communication list. And when you are creating a mailing list, you simply define the categories who you want to reach. And if it's a crisis or emergency communication, then typically you would be picking related contacts like service users, security contacts, emergency contacts, and most likely also store managers. And sometimes, of course, these contacts can be the same as well. In a smaller store, entrepreneur-driven store, it might be that one person is basically carrying all the roles. But it doesn't matter. Then on the right-hand side, you would see a summary of all the emails in your distribution. In a normal production environment, it would, of course, be practically full. But then you can see, well, what kind of emails are coming to your distribution. And the service will automatically remove duplicates, so it doesn't matter if the same person has multiple roles. They will be automatically removed once messages are being sent to them. Then there's also possibility for additional filtering. You can filter by stores or by lines of business. So if you want to, for example, address, for example, grocery stores in this kind of a situation when they have very high volume, and some other stores might have a very low volume, then you could also pick even specific stores for your distribution, or even do the filtering by line of business to create your distribution. In addition to automatically generating the list, you can also add additional email addresses here. So that will then help you at the contacts, for example, from your shopping center office or other stakeholders into the distribution for sending then status reports via email. And then save, and then you have the list in use. And how do you use it in practice? When you want to create your email, then you select the mailing list you want to use. It will give you a run-through of the emails that would be there. And now it's empty because this is test environment. You could still add additional email addresses here. And then you are ready to go. You can then add the contact for your email subject and what you actually want to send. You can also do it in plain text. And before you send, you can also send a test email. You can see report week 13 or 12, for example. Then you would put some content there, and then you could, for example, before sending it to a potentially wide distribution, you could first send yourself a test email just to double check that it's coming through okay, content looks okay, line changes and typos are all okay. Then you could send it and review it, and after that you can click send to send it to your distribution. And on the front page listing it, you will then see all the emails that you have sent through the system. Then also related to role-based communication, under tenant communications, we have a SMS messaging tool. So here we can use a similar approach, but it's simply sending SMSs. So if you have a quick situation that is surprising and you need to reach out to your store contacts, then sending SMS is a very valid way. Doesn't require internet connectivity or anything else, but you can simply reach them directly on their mobile phones. And the contact information in the service is stored with the phone number. So if you have the contact information in place, then you can use this as a very quick tool for sending them information. You can just select the relevant contact groups, and in the background, it will create you a distribution list of phone numbers to which it will then send it. For example, I'll just send an empty message now to show an example how you would be doing it. And then also you could send to other contacts. You can have a custom mailing list also for SMS. So let's say you need to gather your shopping center management for a mandatory extra meeting. Giving them a heads up through SMS is also possible. Then you just create your content. And if you have created a mailing list for your shopping center management, then you can just automatically select that. It will give you the contact information, and then you can send. Also have a customized list for SMS. Then if we think about other more permanent information that you might encounter in these kind of situations, you have a lot of changes coming to the ways you might in the shopping center handle the supplies, handle cleanliness, hygiene, handle opening hours, also handle security. These kind of times can also reflect in increased insecurity, frustration among customers, which can lead to different types of incidents. So you might need to draft quickly different kinds of policies for this emergency situation. And of course, it's important to use the news communication tools, emails, even SMS as needed, but you also need to have more permanent guidelines. So in the Hyperin service, we then recommend the use of our document and article bank. And in these kind of times, you can create a custom area for storing all your updated instructions related to the emergencies. And you can even categorize and group it so that it's the primary area in your center's documents area. So as an example, we might want to create a separate section for your crisis documentation. Let's say, and name it accordingly. And we can leave it at the top. And then we can add any number of documents here. If we have the instructions in PDF, we can add them here. Or then we can just create the content. So there might be then solutions for all the possible situations in your shopping center. So you can quickly document how to access those. And if there are some PDF documents or presentations that you have, then you can upload these as attachments to your article. And you can select it in the hierarchy under the crisis documentation section. So then you have all your more permanent documents for this situation in one place. And then when you're having your meetings with the tenants or personnel, then you can say that this is the place to find the documentation. And then you just keep it up to date and also communicate about changes using your other channels of, for example, internal news or emails to address any changes to guidelines and then point them to this place so they know what is the place for the latest documentation. And one thing we also have come across, or maybe going back actually at this time to the slides. Let's try jumping back. So if we think about keeping consumers up to date, there are different aspects to consumer communication that I also want to highlight. In the Hyperin service, as we are a dedicated platform for single-sourced content management for your digital services, one of the main tools in these kind of times is the news and events tool. So you can easily publish news to the consumers on the website. If they are using the touchscreens or mobile devices, then the same news and events publications are visible also there. And the things this has been used in the late weeks is reactions to official guidelines. There's a lot of communication from health officials regarding the situations. So then in the shopping center, you can address those, find the best sources of information and write your own instructions based on that. So what we have seen is guidelines on consumer hygiene. So it's also telling how the shopping center has prepared to the situation and then also giving guidelines on the visitor to how to use the services and what kind of extra services are available and what kind of actions have been taken. Opening hours guidelines, like I mentioned, we are seeing a lot of exceptional situations. And especially nowadays, when people come to your shopping center website, it's one of the first questions they have, that how is this shopping center functioning in these times? So our recommendation and the aspect that we have seen a lot is that it's the first thing that is brought up to the customers and consumers. So it's transparent communication, what we have done, how we are operating in the middle of the crisis. And after they read that announcement, then they have a clear picture, because it's easier to first get the big picture of the way things are going. And then later on, you also need to check that all the more detailed information pages are up to date. Meaning shopping center general opening hours. Many people might land from Google or other search engines directly to your shopping center opening hours view. without going to the front page. So it's important that you have the information already there, up to date, with possibly some additional notes about the situation, maybe link to the emergency communication, so they always are just a couple of clicks away from that. And in the Hyperin service, as we provide self-service tools for tenants to manage their opening hours and exceptions, this is an important aspect also of the tools, that you can ask the tenants to update the information themselves. Then of course, keeping website content relevant is important in these times. And for touchscreens as well, you can update the content in touchscreens, for example, the information on services and news and events. But then if you have the screensaver on, you can also use that to highlight in a graphical format also some important announcements, so the people don't actually even need to touch the screen. You can show the information there as a way to work around in these exceptional times. And then for mobile application, there is also a possibility to use push notifications. So for example, if you have a campaign already up and running, and you had started the advertisements for your campaign, but then you notice under these circumstances you need to cancel it, but you have already sent out the marketing material, people are aware of that. So how do you get the message out to your loyal customers? Well, one option is to send the push notification. Then they get the information on their phones. They will open the shopping center mobile application, where you can then provide them with more information about what happened and why. And of course, in addition to using the Hyperin service and the digital services we provide, it's important to update the social media. And also, if you have press contacts or press information contact pages material available in your website, to keep them also up to date. So if the press is writing about the local situation in shopping centers, then they can easily get the information from your website. And this is an example using Hyperin services. We have banner management tool in the service that you can use to highlight information. And a very common practice nowadays is to use the main banner place to highlight the emergency message. And then you can use the banner link to even directly point to the news and events article to tell you about the things you want to communicate to the consumers. So under these circumstances, it's important to put it very clearly visible, so it's one click away, and then people also get the trust in you as the service provider. And if we think about the timeline, how these kind of things have progressed, what we have seen in Finland, as at least, of course, in different countries, we see different things and different impacts. But in a typical urban shopping center, we have seen from the February onwards increased in hygiene instructions on the websites and consumer channels. Then we have seen adaptations during early March for the touchscreens. So there's content updates, and in some shopping centers, they might even decide to use only the screensaver space from there and actually put a label to prevent extra touching. And of course, keeping the surfaces is clean. Then also in March, we have seen a lot of events and campaign adjustments. And as we have rolled on in this situation during COVID-19, we have also seen then more and more changes in opening hours and related communications. But then we are also seeing a lot of proactive operations in the shopping centers to help tenants interact more online, using the service to tell about how they are still operating and what kind of options and different ways of working they have found in the middle of the crisis to help their customers. So it's still important also to look forward and think of solutions in addition to providing the acute information about the crisis. And then, since communication is very important under these times, Hyperin is also reaching out to our customers in the form of free support. So until the end of March, for all our existing customers on the usage of tenant and customer communication tools in the shopping center management, you can contact us, and our customer service team will find you the proper and good solutions how to move forward in this. So with any questions for our existing customers might have on this, or if you need more information about the use of the tools, that was mentioned here or the ideas mentioned here, then our support is there to help. Okay. I think if there are any questions now with Hannu, we could look at those. Only 2 minutes overtime, so we are almost in the time box.
Thank you, Jarmo, on my behalf. And so far it looks like that Jarmo's part was covering everything quite well, and we didn't receive any questions so far. But we are still, of course, taking in if you have anything to ask from us, or for example, if you are viewing our recording afterwards, you can still contact us at the address info@hyperin.com, and we will be coming back to you. Thank you for your time and interest, and regardless of the little bit more challenging times at the moment, we are still wishing all the best for you and for the coming weekend. Thank you on my behalf, and if there's anything, Jarmo, you would like to still wrap up.
From my part, just thank you and stay safe and enjoy the things you can. Thank you very much. Have a nice weekend.